Welcome to another edition of the Daily Deuce. I'm Gary Graves from just outside Louisville, Kentucky, where it's sunny and actually warm today. So, John Webster in Maryland, be prepared for some good weather for the next couple days, my man. How you doing?
Doing great, Gary. Everything's going well. 60 degrees here today. It looks like it's going to be warm the rest of the week.
Hmm.
But who knows what's around the corner, my friend? Who knows?
Yep, yep.
Hey, man. John Pitt, how you doing, man?
Doing pretty good. What we got today?
Oh man, we're gonna talk about some college basketball since we're entering that stretch run of the season, and I think it's a good time to talk about spring training and the Baltimore Orioles. John, you think you're up for that?
Yeah, we can talk about them a little bit, man. You know, the O's are always on my mind.
Yeah, yeah. Well, here in Kentucky, what's on my mind, even though I'm retired, is college basketball, and we got a lot going on here between Louisville and Kentucky. Louisville seems to be surging, and Kentucky seems to be struggling. But I think I want to start at the top of the AP Top 25, Auburn, and which leads a conference which has, I think, at last count, five teams in the top 15 and seven in the top 25. Um, you know, we're still weeks away from conference tournaments and selection Sunday, but I'm going to say it's not too early to really look at a team to beat. And I would say it is Auburn right now. Before we went on, we were talking about, great coaches. And Bruce Pearl, I think, is one of them. He's got a team that might actually be better than the one that he took to the Final Four in 2019. Janai Broome, who I remember here when he played at Morehead State before he transferred, just being that rising star. He's getting run for National Player of the Year, which says something. But that team just seems to be really, really stacked and so good that even a loss that they've had as number one hasn't kept them from their 7-8 week run atop the poll, John. And I'd like to get your thoughts on who you think the number one seeds could be or the number one overall seed.
Right now, I'd say the number one overall seed is, I'm going to say Kentucky, but is Auburn. Bruce Pearl's done a wonderful job with this team. Janai Broome is unbelievable. As I said, the kid Baker Mazar that comes off the bench, I really like him, but you got to control him emotionally sometimes. You got Jakai Howard that's playing well. I like the guy in the middle, Cardwell. Real good aircraft carrier, real consistent. Pettiford is another good ball player they got too. My concern is the SEC is so tough. You have Auburn, you have Alabama, you have Kentucky, you have
Florida, Tennessee,
Tennessee. That's what I was trying to think. You have Tennessee.
Ole Miss, Mississippi State. I think
Yeah,
those are the seven there that really come to mind.
yeah. You got some real tough teams, and you're going to go through a grinder. I think they are number one seed. I can see two number one seeds coming out the SEC, to be honest with you, Gary. I can see Alabama as a number one seed. Another number one seed that I can see would be maybe a Michigan. I can see that. And my fourth number one seed, Houston. I was talking to Dante earlier today, and the thing with Houston, they've gone to the Big 12 conference this year. This is their first year in the Big 12, and they're still doing what they did before in the AAC last year, American Athletic Conference. And if you get behind Houston, their defense is so solid that you're going to have problems. They are very tough. Now, the one thing I will say, their offense is decent, but it's not great. So their outside shooting is not consistent. Their offense is not consistent. What is consistent that drives people crazy is the defense that they play, which is absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah.
So those are some of the four that I see. I know when I say Michigan, that's a surprise. I can't think of another team I could put in there right now, but I am very comfortable with
I got one
Alabama.
for you.
Huh?
I got one for you, but continue.
I'm very comfortable with Alabama, very comfortable with Auburn, very comfortable with Houston.
All right. I'm going to throw a dark horse in there. I like Auburn. I like Alabama. I like Houston, and I like drum roll St. John's.
It's
St.
my
John.
man. That's my man. That's my man, Rick
No,
Pitino.
I know. You were carrying the water for Patino over at my alma mater, Maryland. But I think at the time he was I'll say kind of on that comeback. He has landed in the perfect place. I mean, it would be like if our man Hubie Brown, who we both know from way back in the day, New York guy, knows basketball. If he was coaching St. John's, you think it was a perfect fit. I can't think of a more perfect fit than St. John's and Rick Pitino. I mean, when he was at Iona, I thought that was a perfect fit because he eats, sleeps, and breathes New York basketball, if not basketball in general. And I can say that from experience of sitting at a table with him and other media when he was here in Louisville. But what he has done with that team and the way that they just absolutely own UConn lately. And UConn is a good team. They're not playing consistently as I thought they might be, in terms of going for a three-peat. But coming out of that Big East, he's made them relevant again. St. John's. Well, I shouldn't say that because Dan Hurley, has done what he's done. Yeah, with UConn and winning back-to-back titles. But a team that really, really scares me right now, if I'm looking at anybody in the field, it would be St. John's, and it wouldn't shock me if they snuck in there, won the tournament, and earned a number one seed.
I'm gonna tell you something, man. You know, another thing that makes this beautiful for Patino and St. John's. Doesn't he look good in Madison Square Garden?
Oh, no doubt about it. And you make a good point there. Actually, you make a great point there because it's a place he knows well, having coached the New York Knicks at one time. And heck, I mean, he's got a team that kind of reminds me of how the Knicks played under him, even though they didn't win as much under him when he was in the pros. But
Yeah.
I mean,
Now,
holy cow, that team is just absolutely loaded with talent.
and they can get up under your skin too with the defense they play.
Yeah, I mean, what is it? R.J. Luis, rather.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, I don't know what more you could say. He's a guy.
What's the kid's name? Plays on the wing. Richmond.
Kadary Richmond.
Yeah, yes. They have a lot of interchangeable parts from 6'5" to 6'8", 6'9". They can play either 3 or 4 different positions, man. I really like them. I'm going to give you another team I know you really like, Gary. They've had a good year. I'm not ready to jump on their bandwagon yet, but I'll tell you, Maryland Terrapins. My dear sister-in-law, Sharon DeBerry, is probably the biggest Maryland fan that I've ever seen in my life. And I know her as well as you are thrilled that they're having the season they're having. I've heard some people even say Maryland is a Final Four potential team. I'm not ready to go that far yet.
Okay.
I like, was it Gillespie? I like, what's the kid's name? Angel Reese's brother, Julian Reese. And they have an aircraft carrier, Derek Queen. I think Derek Queen's a one and done. I don't think he'll be back, but he is an unbelievable talent, Gary. He can do it in the inside. He can do it outside. He has a good handle of the ball. He has a good motor. I really like his ball playing. I think Maryland as a whole, last year, one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the country. This year, one of the best three-point shooting teams in the country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They are very long. They have a lot of 6'10s. They have some 6'9s. They are a tough team. They are a very tough team. They got a big game coming up this week. They got Michigan State coming to College Park, coming to Coldfield. Oh my goodness, I'm going way back. I got ready to say coming to Coldfield House, Gary. I'm sorry, Gary. Coming to Xfinity. But the whole DMV should be very happy and proud. Maryland has struggled. Georgetown is starting to turn the corner and they're playing a little bit better. They're not playing as well as Maryland, but they are playing well. So let's see what happens, my friend. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, look, I feel very honored and humbled for you to recognize Maryland, and a little surprised because, you know, I want to see them beat Michigan State before I'll really feel great about their postseason chances. And I'll just say, but the three players you mentioned, well, really the last two, Julian Reese and Derek Queen. The thing about Derek Queen, I think his emergence has allowed other guys to also show their games in a different way. They play complementary basketball. And of course, what you just said, they shoot much better from the perimeter. As a program, they're only about 4 years removed from their last tournament appearance, during the COVID years. But that team, I thought they were happy to be there, and I think they were just seeing how far they could really go. They played in a regional up at Purdue, and I just thought, yeah, it's good. It's good to see my alma mater, but it's also notable that it's a team that just didn't seem. They just seemed to be a bunch of individual players who had good games. That all their good games kind of came out, but they didn't really gel. They didn't really blend like this team. I think they play complementary basketball, and it's interesting to watch them in a conference like the Big Ten, where I guess on the one hand, you figure their entry into the Big Ten was predicated somewhat on the basketball audience that they could bring in. It's a football conference. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. That is the honest truth. And I don't think that they really brought much to the table there. And as we said before we went on, that if I think at best that they will be a middling team that will be happy to get 8 or 9 wins, any year in football. I mean, if they get 8 wins, that's to me that's a bonus. But basketball is where the money comes in, where the eyeballs are, and them being competitive this year, I think is great for the program as well as for the league. And I'll just say when they play that Big Ten tournament up the road here in a few weeks, I might be up there to watch it because one, I'm retired and have that time, and really I want to step out of my comfort zone here, in SEC country, because we'll have a regional here in Lexington that I'll be covering, but I really want to see another team that could really be what I consider a challenger to, just to say, the SEC juggernaut that is that is led by Auburn. And one point I want to make about SEC teams entering the postseason, John, that as good as this conference is, as many teams as they have in the rankings, what's the one thing when you have so many teams that are good? What happens? There's a word that begins with C, and you know which one it is.
Go ahead and give it to us, Gary.
They cannibalize each other. And that's what I think is happening in a sense. Well, I'll say the cream is starting to rise to the top in the SEC. I mean, Alabama just really owned Kentucky, which is struggling with injuries right now. They're not a whole team. They really need guys like Jackson Robinson and Lamont Butler to be healthy, to be effective. I mean, they're and really that's the big question for them. I think that they've hung in there, but again, you're getting into the meat of the schedule, and they still have to play Auburn I guess probably in the next week or so as the season winds down. And going well, after we go off the air here, they'll be playing at Texas, which pulled off its own upset recently. It's going to be very difficult for Kentucky to be in there. The main thing for anybody in the SEC is to be in that top four and to get that first, get that double bye and into the semifinal round and or quarterfinal round rather, and and then we'll see what happens. And I don't know if you're Auburn, do you really peg your hopes on winning that, or do you go with that philosophy that some coaches say, well, it's good to take a loss before you get in this team of 64 because it's one and done and everything else. I'm not a big believer in that. I feel like if you're going to play your best ball, you play your best ball in a conference tournament and carry that over to 3 weekends in March where you got to win six in a row. You can't say, oh well, we'll just lose and wait and see where we're placed and just go from there. You got to win it. You just have to go out and win it. I mean, you have to be a team as dominant as UConn was last year. And that's about all I can really say.
Well, I would say it's going to be very interesting. I can't wait to watch it. I mean, as we switch over real quick, let's look at the women for a second, Gary. Notre Dame was upset this weekend. NC State took them out. Notre Dame was number one in the country. Great game, double overtime game. They lost to NC State. I'm not Auburn. South Carolina is still in the top 10. I think they're like 6. You still have a tough Texas team who I think is number 1 now. Who else you got up in there?
Well, you still have UConn, remember?
UConn is playing unbelievable. They're unbelievable. USC is unbelievable as well too with Juju Watkins. I think the women's side of this bracket is wide open. I still think the two best. I've always believed whether it's the men's tournament or the women's tournament, what wins the tournament in basketball is good guard play. It's been proven over and over again. And I think the two best teams with guard play are UConn with Paige Beckers and AZ Foot, and Notre Dame with Olivia Miles and Hannah Hidalgo. I think they have strong guard play. I think it makes a difference when you get in these tournaments. And also, both of these teams do have some aircraft carriers in the middle who can hold it down, get some rebounds, hit some really important shots from the 10-foot range. And both of them play solid defense. Another thing I think it makes it really good on these teams like this, they're guard oriented and you can't really press them. You can't pressure them. You got to come out and press. I think a couple weeks ago we saw South Carolina try to pressure as they normally do, and it normally works, but it did not work on UConn when they played them the other week. I think UConn and Notre Dame, two very strong teams.
Yeah. As for Texas, I think what's really scary about them to me is that the kind of defense that they play. I mean, when you think about it, just the other night they held Georgia, which is not a bad team, but they held them to 26 points. I mean, they beat them by 31. They didn't score a whole lot, but they didn't have to because their defense just really shut the Bulldogs down. And when you can hold a conference team, a solid conference team, to 26 points in 40 minutes, that's saying something. And Rick Schaefer, I mean, from what he did at Mississippi State, I'm not surprised at what he's doing at Texas. And he's got a team that reminds me a lot of that Mississippi State team, rather, that he took to the championship game in 2018. So, again, and they have good guards too. So it's going to be fun to watch. John, we talked so much about college basketball. We didn't even get to talk about spring training, so we might have to, put a pin in this and talk about it next time. But folks, that just tells you how much we have to watch, or you have to watch out there between college basketball, spring training, hockey, let's see what else. What else is coming up? We got, there's going to be spring pro football before
Spring
long.
pro football, United States football. Well, not the USFL, whatever they call it.
No, United Football League.
United Football
Yeah,
League. So
yeah.
yeah.
And John, I'll be honest with you. I'm very intrigued by spring football, by that league, because I remember the USFL, or I should say, we remember the USFL, and it was an entertaining league. And you think about all the great guys that have come out of that league: Jim Kelly. Oh gosh, I'm trying to think of who else. Kelvin Bryant.
Kelvin Bryant, great coaches. Jim Moore came out of there.
Yeah, Reggie White.
Reggie White, Steve Young.
Steve Young. It was a league that
Herschel Walker.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, he went there before he went to the NFL. So, and I mean, they've got guys that have landed on NFL rosters as well. I think one of them played for the Eagles, this past season. I know at least one was on one of the Chiefs title squads, which tells you about the quality of talent that they have there. But we'll get to that in another time. John, take us home.
Hey, another great show. Enjoyed it. As we always say, this week, watch some sports, watch some spring training baseball, watch some hockey, watch the NBA, watch the NCAA men, watch the NCAA women, but above all else, watch some sports. Come back and see us real soon. Take care.